Are you a new domain investor? Do you have a 5-year plan? Today we talk with Josh Reason. He's been domain investing for 5 years. He now has a steady income of 15 to 20K net per month. He tried out full-time domain investing and part-time domain investing, talks about the pros and cons and how that affected his choices in sales strategy. Listen to this show today if you want to develop your strategy, to develop your 5-year goals, and if you just want to get to know a real up-and-comer in the domain name industry. Enjoy. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust.
FD was built by domain investors to increase your inquiries, sales, and profit. Forget spreadsheets and archived emails. Manage your entire investment portfolio in one place using a secure and completely confidential platform. Learn more at FT.com. That's EFTY, FT.com.
Hey, Sherpa Network. I'm Tess Diaz, executive producer of DomainSherpa.com. And today we're joined by a former Sherpa, Josh Reason of PremiumDomains.com. Hi, Josh. How you been?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a delight to have you. And the last time you were on, you were talking with Mike Seiger about a profitable flip. You have continued to profit as you have, you're 5 years into the domain industry now. I think it's time to check in and see how things have progressed for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so. Things are obviously going pretty well. That particular flip was probably the first big one that I had, and I've had quite a few since then. But yeah, things are going great.
So even more since then, congratulations. So I think a lot of domain investors wonder about their trajectory in domain investment. And you have such a fantastic story. 2014, you first began domain investing. Last year, you spent 1 year as a full-time domain investor. Every year, you've had more ROI than the year before.
Yep.
And this year, you've gone back to work and are doing part-time domain investing, but you're making more money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's one of those things, kind of like I was just saying, is that there's probably a few reasons for that, but I did a lot of hard work last year while in the domain industry, and essentially I'm probably seeing the reward for a lot of the hard work that I did then. I'm also gaining more and more knowledge from certain areas of investing and consulting, and I've worked with a lot of companies in the last couple of years. Through personal contacts. Some of them have actually just found me based on the domain names that I have. I own brandconsultants.com, and I actually get some people that find me just because of that domain name.
So you get people who are looking for a brand consultant?
Exactly. Yeah, I've had a few like that. And it's, what's been interesting is, you get a great idea of what people are looking for, what comes to mind when people are searching for a domain name. And you don't necessarily think about those things from their perspective in the early days of domain investing. So it's just one of those things where I've just gradually improved, gradually got better, gradually improved the portfolio. And I think now, obviously being 5 years in, I start to see the results of that a little bit. So
that's a big deal. Yeah. And I like how right before we started recording, you talked about, growing your cash and growing your education. Bit by bit, year over year. A lot of people think of 3-year strategy, 5-year goals. Let's kind of walk through each year how you built upon the year before. So only your first year in domaining was a wash. That's pretty impressive. Not most domain investors can say that. So 2013, you were a tennis star, graduated from Auburn College. What's their team name?
Tigers.
Go Tigers. 2014, you began investing in domains. And that year was a wash. Tell us, give us like some figures. How many domains did you buy? Was it a loss or you broke even?
Oh, it was, 2014 was definitely a loss. I mean, it was one of those scenarios, and I think a lot of people kind of experience that, is where I'm just coming out of college. I've got absolutely zero cash. The cash that I do have, I'm trying to find like some creative way to create some kind of domain that may have some value through maybe a hand reg or maybe the GoDaddy closeouts. Maybe, I'm not even sure if I was at that stage yet. But yeah, I think I may have been able to sell a few of those domains on NamePros or something like that, maybe recoup some of my investments. But I think 2014 was no doubt a loss. But I will say this, is that when I kind of learn about something, and my wife, she gets on me about this all the time, I become compulsive and almost obsessive over it. So, when I see that it's someone's able to be successful in that area, I know it's possible. So it just then becomes a case of how badly do you want it? How badly do you want to learn? How badly do you want to get up to speed? And so I think 2014, probably 2015 as well, was pretty much just learning as much as I could. So
okay. And were you learning? Sounds like you were learning some by experience, by making your purchases and being on the forums and trying to sell them. Did you only sell on the forums your first year?
Yeah, I think I tried. I think I tried to sell on maybe Flipper and other. Maybe may have tried GoDaddy auctions, but I certainly didn't have any end user sales in 2014. Yeah, it was just, like I said, it was just a case of not having anything that anyone would really want, and I couldn't really, because I didn't have the expertise. I didn't really know what was the best thing that I could afford for the money, right? I think if you told me now, hey, you've got $50, spend it and try to get a decent name, I probably could get a domain name that I could turn for a profit, mm-hmm. But I wouldn't have been able to then.
Yeah. And then what did you do on your education piece your first year besides practicing yourself? Did you have a schedule? Did you were so excited and compulsive that you were reading up on stuff? Did you go to conferences? What was your 1 year education experience?
Sure. So, I probably read every single thread that was on NamePros in the first 2 years. I read everything. And probably contributed in some areas, had no clue what I was talking about, but that's by the by. But yeah, I read up a lot. I watched every DomainSherpa every time it came out. I don't think DN Academy was around at that time, but if I had known about, if it was around at that time, I would have for sure signed up. But yeah, I did. I used every possible resource that I could find, and I think probably DomainSherpa was one of the most useful things. I think it was around that time. It was Ali Zandi was doing a lot in the domain industry. He was one of those newcomers that was doing really, really well. I think I tried to reach out to a few people and gain as much knowledge as I could, and that's how it was for the first couple of years, really.
Okay. All right. And then you had this fabulous, profitable flip. And I really like how you shared it with Mike. Now, this was in 2017, but I really like how you shared it, how some of the delays in the negotiations you contributed to. And, you know, I just appreciate that realism that especially your first big profitable flip, it's difficult to do it perfectly, but you worked through it and still were able to negotiate a profit and a good one. And you don't have any background in negotiation. Your background's in marketing.
Well, actually, at that time, I was in sales, and I was pretty. So that's where I kind of got a lot of my confidence and my cash from in the beginning. Was
Okay.
I worked pretty hard in sales, and so I thought I was a bit of a kind of a badass negotiator.
Hey,
But
sometimes the confidence.
yeah, you know, and in regards to that sale, in hindsight, I think I probably squeezed as much as I possibly could from those people. But I think that today I may probably have sold it a little earlier on in the negotiation. I may have sold it a little cheaper, but I'm not going to lie. I've had a lot of sales that I've had good offers on, and I've lost deals. And you know, in terms of my personal model, I try to move names within my ROI range as much as I can. I try to have a slightly higher sell-through rate than the average domain investor. So if it falls within the ROI that I need in order for it to make sense, then I'll typically try to move the name. Unless, you know, I'm really attached to the name and I know that it has like a clear retail value of much more than what the offer is, then of course I'm going to move on. But when it's kind of on that edge and it's borderline, I try to move the name now.
Okay. And that's what's neat is, you know, we're all always evolving our strategies, especially as you gain that experience. How did you come to define what your ROI range is? And are you willing to share those numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'm always trying to get between 10 and 15x on my initial investment, and I do like to try and move names fairly quickly. I do have my names in tiers, so I have tier 1 names that I'm happy to hold for a long time. I'm not really actively trying to sell them at all. And then I have tier 2 names where I'm trying to move those within 18 months typically. And if I'm getting an offer between 10 and 15x my initial investment, I'm definitely trying to take those. And then names that I fall in love with at purchase and then gradually fall out of love with, I'll try to move them even cheaper. And I think we all have those type of names in our portfolio. So
Interesting. Yeah. And do you identify those in any structure, or do you simply just, you know, in your head, you know, which is which?
Yeah, so I mean, I use a few tools and some data to analyze which names I put in which tiers, and I typically have folders. I have all of my names at GoDaddy, so I typically have folders for the ones that, you know, are tier A, tier B, tier C. The ones in tier C, I'm typically trying to sell them really cheap before renewal, because I will renew them, but I just want to move them most of the time. There's not that many of those in my portfolio anymore. They're kind of like stragglers that have been around since, you know, the 2015, 2016 days. But yeah, I do try to tier them. I do try to organize them as such, and it is based on data and what's selling, what's not selling, what I know, and it also has to do with trends, right? I mean, things are changing all the time. I know like big trends at the moment is putting Go and then keyword in front of a name. People love those kind of call to action type names. So. And while maybe 5 years ago that didn't make as much sense, so it's staying up to date with those kind of things as well, which is super important in my opinion. So, yeah,
That's really good. And tracking a trend like that, you're just noticing it in what people are interested in.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at sales pretty religiously.
Okay.
So I mean, I can pretty much tell you what's sold almost daily. I mean, when I come home from my full-time job, the next 3 or 4 hours I spend like looking at these kind of things, researching names, trying to find deals, and obviously spending some time with my wife and Dora if I can. But she definitely would like me to spend more time there. But yeah, it's a lot of work. You can't expect to stay up with the trends and grab the deals if you're not constantly on it all the time. And there are a lot of buying opportunities in the market today. It's just there's more than a handful of people, a lot of people, in fact, that are looking out for those deals as well. So you've either got to be able to recognize them quickly, or you've got to be, actually sitting in your chair ready to scoop them up.
I like that. Yeah. Sitting in your chair, ready to scoop them up. So any other tools or specific data points that you recommend to a newer investor, what they should, have in their tool belt, so to speak?
Yeah. No. So I would say the three, like the real key things that I look for, I use expired domains. I mean, so like 25 times a day, just like everyone else. But there's so many filters there that you can use to refine your search requirements. We've talked about it many times on DomainSherpa before, for sure. But I like to see if the domains, how many different extensions the domain is registered in. I like to see if companies have trademarks for those domain name, for those keywords, or keyword, depending on the domain. I like searching. Obviously, Google's your friend. You can see a lot of end user potential or terms, or whether those keywords are used by simply searching in Google. I use Crunchbase to check for companies, see if they've got an exact match to the name that I'm looking for. Obviously, search volume. Use Keyword Finder for search volume, which is important. But I even look at cost per click as well. All of those things are factors in a decision for me when I'm buying a domain name. And then I think above actually all of those for me is actually my gut, and what do I think about the domain name? Is it I've spoken with enough companies. I have enough experience in the brand world to know, would this be a good brand? Does it have end user potential? And if the answer is yes, then most of the time, if the numbers make sense, I'll go for it.
That's really neat. And at what point in domain investing do you think you got to that level where your gut instinct was really, that you felt that you could trust it, that it was spot on?
That's actually a really good question. I always double check myself, make sure that I'm thinking along the right lines, because I think we always sometimes get lost in the sauce, and we get really excited about an opportunity, and suddenly the domain name looks like gold. But yeah, it honestly probably took me 3-4 years and this is like, when I'm not exaggerating when I say this is like daily work that I was putting in on both, and it's not just in the domain industry. It's actually in marketing and branding in general, and I think that's like there's a clear crossover there that most people understand, but how many people actually focus on here? I want to learn more about branding, and I want to learn more about marketing, rather than I just want to learn more about domains. So for me, I try to combine the two, because a lot of the time, they're going hand in hand.
Yeah, that's very true. What do you think the typical new domain investor who doesn't have a branding and marketing background, what do you think they need to know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in my eyes, there's so many different investment models. I mean, you can probably break them down into like three key structures, but everyone has variations, right? You've got the people that have been around for a long time, and they've got really top tier domain names that they're not selling for less than 6-7 figures, and even on their mediocre names, they're happy to sit and wait for really big offers, and that's absolutely fine. But I think that newer investors need to understand that they'll never sell a lot of those domain names. They'll never sell them, and it doesn't mean that they're not making a lot of money, because when they do make a sale, they make a big sale. But if you're new and you need to make sales, that's probably not the best strategy for you if you want to make money. If you want to build a portfolio and you're happy not to make a sale for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then yeah, that maybe that's okay. But if you're looking to come in and make money quickly, then sometimes you're going to have to price your domain names a little bit more. I mean, I use the word reasonably. Reasonably is probably not the right word, but a little bit more competitively. I think that the people, the psychology, people like to see buy it now prices that are within a certain range, and you can certainly move a lot more names if you have a competitive price point. And for a lot of new people coming in, they're not buying. I'm not saying this is always the case, but they're not buying, your top key oneword.coms that get daily inquiries. They're most of the time you're looking at 2word.com brandables, or keyword 2word.coms, and maybe picking them up for a couple $100 here and there. And those type of domains aren't getting daily inquiries, maybe not weekly inquiries, maybe not even monthly inquiries. So when those inquiries do come along, sometimes you've got to be able to follow some kind of structure that you have, right? Mine is, hey, I want 10 to 15x on my investment, but maybe if I haven't had a sell in a long time and someone offers me 5x or 8x, and then I'm in the business of wanting to move more domain names personally, and I think that most people in the domain industry who get in, they're in the same boat, right? They want to make money. Right? I think that's why a lot of people come in. They want to make money. So at the beginning, I think you've got to be willing to make some adjustments and sell names for a little less than what some of the people that you might see in the industry that are selling, names for.
Now, that's a really interesting point, Josh. When we take it back to what you were talking about earlier with your education was, and we didn't talk percentages, but you were saying you had a 2-part education. One part was watching Sherpa and, reading blogs and forums, but the other part was the experience of selling them and listening and hearing the feedback you get. So it sounds like applying that here, even if your financial strategy in the short term is not, you're not a just graduated from college and strapped for cash, but it still would likely behoove you both long-term financially and short-term to evolve your investments. Buy it, sell it, learn through the process, cut your losses, and each time buy a little bit better domain, whether it's more expensive or not, it'll be better quality because you'll have learned, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I just to make things a little bit more interesting, I mean, just last month, yeah. So the month of April, I think I've made 3 sales, but the two, maybe just two, no, 3 sales. I made 3 sales. So and 2 of which I acquired in the same month. So and one of them was a 5number.com, and you know, and to that point, I'm happy to diversify my investments so that people like focus on certain niches. I want to make sure that I take every single opportunity I can. So I want to understand the number market. I want to understand the 3-letter market. I want to understand the 4-letter. I want to understand every single market that I possibly can, because if an opportunity comes up, I want that opportunity, right? So, you know, I bought a 5number.com for $2,000 and I sold it 3 days later for $20,000. And that was 2 weeks ago. And I think it was $21,000, something like that. And and I think that the actual worth in the Chinese market was probably more than that. But I know that there are a lot of domain names that I can improve my portfolio on with $20,000. Like I know there is, and I'm going to feel much more comfortable doing that because I understand the Western market better than what I understand the Chinese market, you know? So, and then, you know, the other day I sold, which I actually posted this on Twitter, but I sold marketinsider.com for $8,000. It was a purchase for $700 the week beforehand, and it was an end user that approached me, and you know, a lot of people kind of said, "Hey, listen, I think that domain name is a $20,000-$30,000 domain name," and what the thing is that I don't have a bad reaction to that, because I agree. I think it probably is a $20,000 or $30,000 domain name, but I know that fits within my ROI strategy. I know that I might have to wait 5, 6, 10 years to maybe achieve that price. And for me, I prefer to put that money into another investment. So yeah, that kind of elaborates a little bit more on your question, but I mean, I think it's good to kind of give some real world examples.
Yeah, I like that. The meat and potatoes. So 2 weeks ago, you sold a 5number.com that you bought the week before?
Yeah, it was the week before. I bought it for about $2,000, more or less.
Okay, where did you buy it?
It was a buy it now on GoDaddy.
Okay.
I mean, and it was posted on GoDaddy that same day, you know, so I'm sure there were other people that would have bought it.
Okay, so it was fresh.
Yeah, but that goes back to what I'm saying is that I'm ready to scoop up those deals when I see them.
Neat. Okay. So do you mind sharing the exact numbers? You know, because in the Asian market, each numbers often, you know, have special values.
Yeah. So I said to the guy that brokered the deal that I wouldn't reveal all the details. I will say that there were 4 repeating numbers in there.
Okay. 4 repeating numbers and then 1 other number, either at the beginning or the end, like not in the middle.
It was actually the second number, which was the
okay. Okay. All right. And so there was also a broker. This is interesting. So you bought it on GoDaddy, buy it now. It was freshly listed by probably another domain investor. You bought it for $2,000. And then how did you come to sell it a week later? You worked with the broker came to you, you're outbound, inbound? So
I think I posted the acquisition somewhere on maybe social media, or I think it was on one of the social media platforms, and and a guy that kind of specializes in the 5-number market contacted me and asked me how much I wanted for it.
So another domain investor or a domain broker?
I think he does a little bit of both.
Okay. So basically you shared within the domain community and someone reached out and said what?
Sent me a private message instead and asked me how much I wanted for the domain. Yeah, and I think I probably asked for maybe 30 grand, something like that. And he made me pretty good offer, and I kind of realized that we were probably going to make a deal.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you sold it to him.
Well, initially he made me an offer on like for himself, and then I think that he decided that he would find a buyer for it, and he must have had someone lined up, because we got into escrow, and I thought I was I kind of thought I was selling it to him, and I realized that I wasn't, because it all happened so quickly. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. So sounds like, yeah, he brokered it to someone else with, and super fast. Yeah. And, sometimes that's okay. And it sounds like you're really firmly rooted in what your strategy is for ROI. And so if there's a little money left on the table, that's okay. Because each time you're kind of reinvesting and learning more. Do you think you'll get to a point, do you plan to get to a point where you'll be like the old timers you described?
So, that's what most of that's a personal goal for me, is to be able to do those kind of things. And when I don't need to kind of churn those sales year over year, I like to make sales. That's, so I enjoy doing it. And but the main goal is I believe in domain names. I believe in what they do for your brand, and I believe in how powerful they can be for a company. So, and I have my own, goals. I'd like to, to start my own kind of companies, and I would love to have a portfolio of very, very strong, oneword.coms and those kind of things. And the only way you can do that today is by having a lot of cash, because nobody's selling you those domain names for cheap. So, if I'm able to churn sales over and, get better domain names, I'm gonna do that as much as I can. And I think that it's really really important to understand that people within the industry are in very, very different situations. I'm in different situation than, Drew and Rick and those guys, and, people who are starting off are in a different situation than I am. And so what I would sell a domain for is going to be different than both of those people on both ends of the spectrum some of the time. And there's, I understand a domain name has inherent value, right? And you can appraise a domain name within a certain range, but at the end of the day, it's all circumstantial to some degree, because it depends on who's buying it and who's selling it. So it's just my 2 cents.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I want another example here. I really like this one. So marketinsider.com. That's a second domain that you bought and a week later sold it for, I don't know that math, but $700 to $8,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, it's right within that kind of 10 to 15x range that I'm talking to you about. It was an inbound inquiry from a pretty decent sized company, I think. It was one of those deals that I wrapped up in 24 hours. I don't actually think that I could have got more money from this particular buyer. It was one of those situations where I think that they were ready to go at that point, but I had a buy it now price on it, so they could have just bought it. But what I did is I said that I can offer them a 20% discount on the buy it now price, and that's it. That's like the absolute maximum. Actually, I think I said we can typically offer a 10 to 20% discount on what the buy it now price is, and they said, if you can do a 20% discount, we'll buy it. And for me, at that point, that's a no-brainer, because I would pay 20% to Afternic or GoDaddy anyway. But it came through an FD lander. So I'm just taking 20% off the buy it now price. And we had a quick sale. So yeah, could it have sold for more? Probably. But again, like I said, it fits within that ROI range for me.
Yeah, it sure does. So let's back up on that. Marketinsider.com. It's kind of amazing that a domain that good is available for only $700. Where did you acquire? And that was also April?
Yeah, it was a buy it now listing. I think it was.
Okay. Was it another one that you think was just freshly listed?
I'm not sure about that one, actually, but I think it was on GoDaddy. And yeah, I mean, it might have been quite far down in the list, because people tend to sort domain names by certain filters, and like one of the filters that I personally use is how many extensions it's registered in. So from the, as many as possible to the least amount. It gives you a good, quick way to sort through the ones that are probably most valuable.
Sure.
And like Market Insider was actually only registered in like 4 or 5 different extensions at that point, which is actually kind of weird for that name, because my initial reaction was like, that's a really good domain name. Why is that not registered in more extensions? And I kind of did a little bit of research on it. Honestly, I didn't like the fact that Markets Insider, although I think is a worse name, is used by Business Insider. And obviously Business Insider is obviously, big. But I didn't like the fact that Markets Insider was used by them, just because it takes away the possibility for like, if I was going to create a brand in that like industry, I don't think I would want to create one that is confusing with an already well-established brand.
Absolutely.
Unless I was like trying to make a play on like taking some of the traffic or something along those lines, which I don't.
And neither one of us are attorneys or anything, but I would think that would be a legal concern to a potential end user buyer. Which is probably another reason why you have somebody who wants to buy it. Boom. Great. Before you realize that you have, before the buyer realizes they may have an IP conflict, let them go ahead and get it. I mean, and I'm not advocating, selling trademarks in any way, but this is not, not in the case, I'm sure. So you bought it, you think you caught it because nobody else was pulling those or looking that far down the list, like you said. So even though you had that concern, you still in your gut felt like, it was a valuable combination.
Oh, yeah. It's still a valuable domain name. I questioned how many end users would want to buy it. And not really because there was an IP concern, just because of confusion, a little bit. And, you type in Market Insider into Google, and it's never, I don't see it as a good sign if the top results are something different than what you've typed in, like Markets Insider. Right. So,
yeah. And what kind of market, it's not real specific.
Right. And I'm not taking away, it's a great domain name. Like I still believe that to the right buyer, it's probably a $20,000-$30,000 domain name.
Yeah. But it's about the decision-making process and how you came to decide that this was worth your investment.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. It's actually one of those where it comes down to your gut. And I think that a lot of, decent or good domain investors know that it's a good domain name, that's a good domain name. But if you look at just the data on that one, it was actually not that good. There are a lot worse names with better analytics as such. Yeah.
Okay. So then within a week you got an inquiry through so do you automatically list your domains on FD as soon as you acquire them?
I've used FD for a while, maybe 2 or 3 years. But I did try Undeveloped for a little while. But I didn't see much of a difference between them and FD. And obviously I already paid a subscription fee for FD. So I prefer to avoid the 9% commission that undeveloped charges. So I'm in the process of moving most of my names back to FD. I probably have about a quarter of them there right now. But yeah, it's that what I've been doing at the moment. And I was actually talking to Michael Seiger about this, is that what I've been doing at the moment is I've been putting buy it now prices on After Nick, which a lot of people do for like those tier 2, tier 3 names. And then actually I've switched my landing pages to make an offer. So if someone like searches for them at the registry level or goes to their registrar and tries to find a domain, then they'll see it's available for buy it now, and they can choose to buy it if they want to. But if someone makes an inquiry through a landing page, I'm happy to start a negotiation, and I'll probably remove the buy it now price at that point as well.
Okay, interesting. So this one you put up Market Insider, you put up on FD, and within a week an end user reached out. Now, what info does FD give you for an inquiry? The email address?
Yeah, email address, phone number, a message, an offer. They give you the IP address as well, which is sometimes useful. And I think those are the four key things that they give you. Yeah.
Okay, so based on that information, do you immediately search who your buyer is, or you just discuss the purchase?
Yeah, absolutely do. I search, and I mean, this particular buyer, I think it was their media agency, or their creative agency that actually reached out on their behalf. So I didn't actually know who the buyer was until we got into escrow. I thought the buyer was this media agency, but it wasn't actually them. They were representing a client,
which usually means an even larger client in the first place. Okay, and how did you come to the $8,000 sale price?
Yeah, it's kind of like I said. It was actually one of maybe like 3 names that I have a buy it now price on the landing page. I think I put the buy it now price on maybe even by accident, because I hadn't been doing that for my other names, and it was 9,888. They could have bought it on the landing page if they wanted to. They didn't. They elected to make an offer. They made an offer of like $4,000, something along those lines. So, in my experience, that's a pretty good offer to start with. I know at that point that they're a serious buyer. And I simply responded, hey, listen, I can normally get a 10 to 20% discount on the domain name for you. If that works, let me know. And he said, hey, yeah, if you can do 20%, we'll buy it. If not, we're going to pass. So like, would he have passed? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably doubt it, actually, in hindsight. But in some scenarios, they really will pass. I've had plenty that they will. So, I just bought the name. So I said, okay, listen, I got back to them. I said, yeah, 20% will work. This is what the price comes out to be, which is like $7,910. I switched the buy it now price on FD. So it was exactly what that number that we agreed on was. And they went through, clicked through, started escrow, and it was in escrow, and they funded it immediately. And it was done within 24 hours. Yeah.
No kidding. And did you have an if then in your negotiation, like, I'll knock 20% off if you fund within 24 hours, or you were just saying, hey, listen, here's your $4,000 offer. I can't do that. The buy it now is $8,000. The most I could go is 20%. off of it.
It was essentially like, I can go to bat for you to like, so I actually, I normally have someone else respond to my inquiries, either my wife or someone else that does a few things for me sometimes. And what I ask them to do is on these kind of inquiries is say, like get a commitment before giving any kind of price reduction, which is like is almost like sales 101. It's like I can potentially get you this, but I need confirmation from you that if I get you this, you will move forward with the deal. So as soon as I got confirmation from them that yes, if you can do this, we will move forward here. We then, can get back to them and say, hey, okay, we're good to go.
Boom.
Exactly.
Nice. And closed it via escrow. And you're right, also factoring in the, that you didn't have to pay anybody else commission. Sweet deal. Now, do you think it was just an absolute coincidence of timing? Or do you think that did Market Insider, before you acquired it, did they have a landing page, or was it only if you went to GoDaddy and searched for it or for general domains to buy that you would find it? Do you think the difference was that you had a landing page and this buyer had been watching it, saw a landing page come up and said, oh, and they didn't know the other ways to acquire it?
There's a very good possibility that that they were monitoring the name in some capacity, and saw that there was a landing page and there was an easy way to get in touch. I can't tell you the amount of times, especially in the last 2 years, that I'll buy a domain from someone or at auction or something like that, put a landing page up, and suddenly get an immediate inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
So because actually it's crazy, but there are still so many people that own great domain names that they maybe have them listed at GoDaddy or whatnot, but they don't have landing pages on them. And I think that, in fact, I know that most people that are not, that familiar with the domain industry yet have a need to buy domain names on some semi-regular basis, what they do is they type in the URL. That's what they do.
Sure.
And if nothing comes up, it's just difficult for them. Especially with who is now being a little bit more. A lot of the registrars will not show the full information because of I guess the GDPR that was going on in Europe. Even if you're, a lot of my names, I'm based here in the US, it doesn't show my contact information in a lot of the cases. So you want to make it as easy as possible for someone to buy an asset that you're trying to sell. Nobody wants to work hard. It's the same with any industry. You want simplicity. Nobody wants to overthink things. The easier you can make the process, the better. So
yeah. And I'm just thinking out loud here, but someone like a creative agency who reached out to you to do this acquisition, I would think they're specializing in branding and marketing, not in domain researching, and they may not even know how to look up the who is or how to check GoDaddy for an availability. They may only know to go to the landing page, or they're not spending their own money. They're probably not incentivized financially. So they might just, first thing I'll do is type in the domain. Oh, look, I can make an offer. And they're not comparison shopping, so to speak, either, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we at Currency, my full-time job, we work with a few agencies. We work with a creative agency, and I'm pretty sure that most of them, although they know a decent amount when it comes to branding and creative and artsy type stuff, they're not experts in domain acquisition, and a lot, it would be great for all of us if companies always came to a domain broker or a domain industry professional with acquisition attempts, but the reality is that they don't. So they either try to do it themselves, or they use an agency that might not be that familiar with the process, or various different things that they might do. But you can never assume in anything that people are thinking about things the way that you would think about them. So
yeah, that's a quotable quote there, Josh. Yeah, very true. Now, I jumped too fast. We were talking about your 5n.com sale, and you bought it in April for $2,000 as buy it now at GoDaddy, you said?
Yeah.
But what did you sell it for? You talked about how you sold it, but I did not nail you down to an exact price.
I think it was 21,000.
21,000. What? Because you basically tweeted about it, and you're just willing to collaborate with someone you hadn't worked with in the past. Way to make friends in the domain industry.
No, really, really nice guy. Haven't worked with him before. We'll probably work with him at some point in the future. I do like to trade heavily in like the liquid market when I can, and that truly is for me trading. I mean, I've sold 3letter.coms quite regularly, but I've never held them for very long, because when I got into that market, they were quite expensive. So I've traded them, but I don't hold them for very long.
Okay.
I would like to start holding them for longer, but we'll see.
Okay. So you were on the show a year and a half ago with really your first big sale of $30,000, and it took you 6 months to close that sale. Now, a year and a half later, you made more than that just last month without really trying. Don't tell your wife and daughter that I said you didn't try, but I know you put a lot of work into the acquisition choices. So you're really investing. Your strategy seems to be, it sounds like 90% of your time investment is about what you buy, not about what you sell, who you sell it to. Is that accurate?
100%. Like at least 90% of the time that I spend is on researching domain names, trying to find needles in a haystack. That is, I mean, I can't tell all my secrets, but I certainly go above and beyond to find loopholes and all kinds of things that give me a competitive advantage over other people. And on the sales side, I will try to sell some of the higher value names to other investors that are willing to have that long term hold and upside if I can get domains at a good price. And for the ones that I want to hold myself, I've never had too much success in outbound sales. I haven't. I tried quite a bit last year, obviously when I was full time. Sold a couple, but it wasn't actually probably worth the time spent. I would say that outbound sales is worth it when you're selling very, very, very high quality names, but otherwise probably not. So yeah.
Very, very interesting. Well, good for you. Now, so it must have been a big leap to go full time.
Oh.
And then it must have been a big leap to leave. And then did you expect to make more money now that you're part-time? Or is that a surprise?
No, definitely not. And like I said, I think that there's a few elements, right? There's always a little bit of luck involved. There's the fact that I did work really, really hard last year with on the acquisition side,
Mm.
And with those acquisitions, I was able to hold a few of them, and I got sales there. And then sorry, I lost my trail of thought. But but last year, what I did was I sold hundreds of names, as opposed to a few names here and there.
Okay.
I sold them with I sold a lot of names with very marginal profits. So I was selling names. I was buying names for $50, $100 or whatever. Or a lot of the time, actually, I was buying a lot of closeout names, like $10, $11 last year. And then churning them and selling them for like 100 or 150. And I was doing that not because I thought those domain names were amazing, is because I understood the market and what other people would pay for them.
Yeah. And you had an electric bill to pay. You didn't have another source of income. And, that's really interesting. I'm just kind of extrapolating here, but if you're not an expert who really knows the daily fluctuations in the domain market, it's really bright to just sell quickly. And you already know what the market is because you just bought that.
That's exactly it. I mean, if you're buying and selling, even at that price point, like say $50 to $150, if you're doing that at scale, if you sell 10 of those a week, in the end, you're and then plus you get a few big ones in there as well, where you can, you're doing okay. So I would have, and I talked to you about this before the show, I would have probably continued working for myself and building on my own business and continuing to do some consulting for various people. It was going very, very well. It was increasing nearly month over month. But yeah, I'm very passionate about what I'm doing right now over at Currency. So that's another thing altogether. And I've actually been able to incorporate a lot of what I've learned from the domain industry, and just branding and marketing in general, into actually helping them move into the next phase for them as well, for the company. So
that's super cool, not only for you professionally, but also I think as that's what it takes for the domain industry to grow. So many of us find financial success and freedom with domains, but then it's almost like a withdrawal instead of reinserting that knowledge into end user corporations who are lacking that. So that's pretty cool. And then it's neat that allowed you to change your strategy and you found more success a different way. And that's key, to change it up a little, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, and see what happens. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't push for a minute. You said loophole, and I'm like, ding, ding, ding. What do you mean a loophole? Now, I suspect you don't mean like one actual loophole. Do you mean you're looking for outliers like Market Insider that on paper didn't look good, but in your gut it felt good? Or what do you mean by a loophole without giving away all your secrets?
I mean, I'm not like finding like some dark web of domain names.
Oh,
it's not like that. It's just that I've probably figured out ways to filter and find domain names that maybe only I would probably argue that maybe 25, 30 people, maybe less in the entire industry know how to do and when to do those things. So, and listen, it's nothing that I've learned has been from anything other than just spending a lot of time learning and looking for patterns and all those kind of things. So
yeah. So you are a filtering Sherpa.
I am a filtering Sherpa. If you saw my expired domains filters, you would be like, whoa.
That's super, super cool. And I think that's such a statement about the opportunity in domain names and in this type of investment. You just purchased your first house?
Just purchased my first house, and I was talking to Drew about this the other day on Skype. It was just like, I think that one of the reasons actually why I've probably done quite well in the first quarter or so of 2019 is just like I've been frantically trying to like push and sell as many domain names at like a decent ROI as possible, just so I could build up the cash reserves that I needed in order to buy a house here. It's not true. So I've been building up all those cash reserves and kind of selling names. And now I was just saying this the other day, now I've closed on my house. I'm ready to go back out there and start spending again. So everyone needs to watch out.
And would you say that going from, churning at low margins to now, it sounds like you had a cash crunch, you churned at high margins. Would you say that was just a change of strategy because of your life circumstances, or would you say that was an evolution to a higher tier?
Yeah, I really, really, really believe that it's all circumstantial. I think that I probably would have done things in the last 2 or 3 months differently if I was in a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if I was making $100,000 a month or whatever, I probably would do things differently than the way that I'm doing them.
Yeah. When you're making $100,000 a month.
Oh, when? No, yeah. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe that'll happen next year. We'll see.
Yeah. What would you share? Like, what are you making a month now?
Yeah, no, I actually don't mind sharing like these kind of things, especially on the domain side for sure. But I mean, typically on the domain side, I on average probably net, yeah. I mean, it's tough to say on net because it goes straight back into the domain into domain investments. But I probably sell right now about 15 to 20 grand a month ish.
Wow, that's really, really cool. Good for you. That's not bad for a part-time gig. And when the biggest thing I think for a Sherpa network is to see your progress from, 15 to 20 grand, let's round that up to 30 if we may. And 30 was your gross, but a year and a half ago, you spent 6 months you netted like 27,000, right?
Yeah, on that particular one, yeah.
And now that's boom every month, baby. That's pretty neat.
It's definitely. I mean, last month was definitely better than normal. You can't always get like those five ends where I got a great deal and churn that one down. I mean, that was obviously a big bulk. And actually, I think three sales is about average for me.
Okay.
Right. I own probably about 100 maybe 150 4letter.coms. 75 of which are not great, and then the 75 of which are pretty decent quality. So those ones I typically get 1 or 2 sales for those. Probably get about 1 every couple of months on those. And then I typically always get 1 or 2 flips in a month. And then I normally get one or 2 end user inquiries. That's typically the breakdown on average, I would say.
Very cool. Josh, this was really, really interesting and exciting, I think. Very encouraging for new domain investors. And watch out and hustle, you old domain investors, because there's a new kid in town.
I don't know about that. I'll try. I will continue to try to catch up some of these guys, but they, a lot of them do a phenomenal job. I know my place in the ecosystem right now for sure, and I'm completely okay with that. But I think the key thing for me is I'm very, very passionate about the industry. I know how beneficial it can be for people outside of our industry, and I just want to grow. So.
Very, very cool. So, I am putting together DomainSherpa Jeopardy, and I've decided, and you were the first one, I've decided that each Sherpa guest from now on, I want to ask, what's a good question? What's a good, what's something you didn't know about the industry that surprised you? I don't know. You got what? Give me something for 200, Alex.
Something that I didn't know about the industry that surprised me.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. So I think it surprised me actually how close everyone who's been in the industry for a while, and by a while I mean like maybe more than 5 years. Pretty much everyone knows everyone. It's it's still small enough where even if they're not talking with each other or they're not friends as such, which actually a lot of people are. I mean, I went to NamesCon Europe last year. I went to NamesCon in January this year, and great community. Everyone seemed to know everyone. I think that when I was initially in the first couple of years, I think I probably didn't realize just how small the community of the people that are actually investing in domain names is. That's probably the surprising thing for me.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah, very true. Are you going to NamesCon Europe this summer? In really a couple weeks, like 6 weeks.
I would have loved to, but I mean, I am so busy at Currency right now. I mean, we went through a brand consolidation recently. And I was at the forefront of helping with that. So it's one of those things. I mean, we had like 4 or 5 million visitors to one of our like sub brands that we phased away. So getting things in alignment and migrating all of those people over to our umbrella Currency has been a lot of work. And at this point, it's now I'm tasked with trying to grow a certain product, and I just don't have time. I wish I did. I just don't have time.
That's okay. And you're busy moving into your new house. So, then we'll just see you at NamesCon Austin next time.
Oh yeah. I was just about to say Vegas as well. And then I completely blanked.
Yeah, I actually have a dream. I want to organize like a kayaking adventure or something when we're in Austin. Like there are all those rivers and the outdoors. And so you're invited. First person, you're invited. I have nothing planned, but you're invited.
This is the best interview ever. I feel like I'm making friends right now. It's great.
I know it is. It's really cool. Yeah. I like that about DomainSherpa. And sometimes I introduce other Sherpas who, like on the Sherpa panel, they're like, yeah, we've never actually had a conversation. Yeah. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
That is cool. That kind of like ties into the fact that they for sure know each other, but they just haven't spoken.
Yeah. It's a small world and it's a good world. So, no, thank you for taking the time. That's the other great thing. Not only is it a small community, but I think there's that real attitude of giving back. And Josh, this was, I think, great for new domain investors who want to develop their own plans and strategies, who want to compare, make decisions about going full-time or not, recognizing how their situations may affect their strategies. I'm really excited to share this with our Sherpa network and to have you back on and see where you are in 6 months or a year. It should be pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. I hope I don't disappoint at that time. I'm going to come back 6 months from now and be like, yeah, I haven't really made too many sales. But
I don't really predict that happening. We'll see, but I don't think so. Oh.
If that does happen, I always have the excuse that I do have a full-time job. So
No, if that does happen, then we'll be discussing what do other investors need to learn from this.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
You can title it "What Went Wrong with Josh Reason."
The reason behind, I don't know, I got to work that one out. You must have a lot of puns with your name, I would think.
Oh, yeah. I got a lot of puns.
Yeah. Me, not so much, but
No.
All right. Well, Josh, we will see you soon. Not in Lisbon, but definitely soon back on the show. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for speaking to me, and always happy to come talk.
Good. All right. Sherpa Network. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.